In the hush of night, 4 young lives were extinguished in what should have been the safety of home. Their futures snatched away while the world slept, only to wake up and demand answers. On November 13, 2022, in Moscow, Idaho, 4 University of Idaho students, Madison Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernadal, and Ethan Chapin, were brutally stabbed to death in a rental home off campus. The alleged perpetrator, Bryan Kohberger, a PhD student in criminology. For months, investigators pieced together cell phone data, surveillance, DNA, and witness statements. After a long legal process, in July 2025, Kohberger pleaded guilty. He will serve 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole. But even with a confession, many questions linger about motive, method, and what led a scholar to become a killer. Bryan Kohberger was born November 21, 1994. He grew up in Pennsylvania, studied psychology and criminal justice, and ultimately enrolled in a criminology PhD program at Washington State University in Pullman. He seemed ordinary, one of many grad students hoping to understand crime, not commit it. But in the months before the murders, some concerned behavior emerged. Faculty and students described him as creepy, sexist, uncomfortable in personal boundary situations. Complaints were reportedly made about him blocking office doors, following female students, acting in ways that raised alarms. He maintained high academic performance, but those who knew him say that behind his intellect was a restless precision, overly clean car behaviors of obsession. When pressed, his defense raised issues such as autism spectrum disorder and other mental health notes, though none of these were admitted into evidence in court unless he testified. These 4 students were not just names in headlines. They were friends, classmates, hopes, plans. Kaylee Goncalves, 21, majoring in general studies. Widely described as kind, with a job lined up post-graduation. She was outgoing, caring, deeply connected to friends and family. Madison Maddie Mogan, 21, marketing major, best friends with Kaylee since 6th grade. Someone who planned to move after graduation, had ambitions, dreams. Xana Kernadal, 20, junior, also studying marketing. She shared a close relationship with Ethan Chapin. Together they had plans, routines, mutual affection. Ethan Chapin, 20, major in recreation, sport, and tourism management. More than a partner, he was a friend, someone with his own hopes, his own story. These were not people living in isolation from joy. They were young, stepping into adulthood, planning futures. The contrast is bitter. 4 lives of potential ended in darkness. Before the night of the murders, there were signs, however subtle, that something was off. Senior students and faculty at WSU had raised concerns about Kohberger's interpersonal behavior. Some described his behavior toward women as inappropriate or unsettling. He was reportedly removed as a teaching assistant shortly before the murders due to performance issues and complaints. Digital patterns also showed repetition. His phone pinged near the victim's house many times in the months prior. Investigators later found that Kohberger's car, a white Hyundai Elantra, was seen near the house during key times before and after the murders. None of these signs on their own are proof of guilt, but they formed a patchwork of suspicion, unease, and, when viewed in hindsight, ominous lines leading toward tragedy. November 12, 2022. A normal autumn night. The 4 students spent time separately, some at local bars or parties, some returning to the King Roadhouse late at night. Surveillance indicates Kaylee and Madison out downtown. Xana and Ethan also out earlier, returning. A DoorDash order arrives just after 4 a.m., just before the murders. Phone data shows Kohberger's phone becomes inactive around 2:47 a.m., then resumes receiving signals around 4:48 a.m. on November 13th. Investigators believe the murders occurred between 4 o'clock and 4:25 a.m., when the victims were likely asleep. It was during these early morning hours that Kohberger is alleged to have entered the home through a sliding kitchen door, moved through the third floor to kill Madison and Kaylee, then encountered Xana on her way upstairs, and finally Ethan in Xana's room. Roommates report hearing noises, barking dog, possible sounds of struggle. This is what the evidence shows, step by step, with caution, noting where things are certain, and where reporting remains based on investigation rather than confession. Entry: Kohberger allegedly entered through the kitchen sliding door just after 4 a.m. on November 13, 2022. First attack. On the third floor, Madison Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves, asleep in their rooms, are stabbed multiple times. Moving through the house. Kohberger then is alleged to go downstairs or across floors, encountering Xana Kernadal, who lived downstairs but awakened by noises. He attacks her, then Ethan Chapin, who was staying in Xana's bedroom. Defense and resistance. Autopsy reports show defensive wounds. Some victims tried to protect themselves. Xana, for example, had over 50 stab wounds. Escape/exit. After the killings, surveillance and cell phone data suggest Kohberger left. Car seen driving off, phone turned back on later. The precise murder weapon was never recovered by public records, though investigators believe it to have been a large, fixed-blade knife, possibly a K-bar style. Later that morning, November 13th, around 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed by one of the surviving roommates, saying someone was unresponsive. Police responded to find the bodies of 4 students in the King Road house. Public reaction was immediate. Horror. Candlelight vigils sprang up. The tranquility of Moscow, Idaho, a small college town, was shattered. Questions flooded local news. Who did this? Why these students? Was the murderer among them? Was there reasonable security in that house? DNA on sheath. A knife sheath found in the home bore DNA that matched Kohberger's after investigators collected trash from his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Vehicle surveillance. The white Hyundai Elantra registered to Kohberger was seen repeatedly near the victim's residence in the early morning hours. Phone tower data. Kohberger's phone was not transmitting between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m., suggesting either turned off or outside coverage. Between July and November, phone location data showed the phone near the victim's home many times. Witness statements. 2 roommates, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, survived. One saw a masked person walking through the house late at night. Texting reveals they tried calling roommates, saw figure outside or in stair areas. Autopsy and medical examiner reports. Stab wounds, defensive wounds, and estimates that victims were asleep when attacked. Some had over dozens of knife wounds and indications of struggle. No signs of sexual assault per reports. Kohberger was arrested December 30, 2022, in Pennsylvania. The extradition to Idaho was completed by early January 2023. Initially in court, Kohberger pleaded not guilty. Defense raised challenges, asked for delay, questioned evidence including DNA integrity, attacked venue, motions to suppress evidence, etc. On July 2, 2025, Kohberger changed his plea to guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary, in a plea deal that spared him the death penalty. Plea deal terms. Kohberger waived his right to appeal, avoided capital punishment. Sentencing. On July 23, 2025, Judge Stephen Hippler sentenced him to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 10 years for the burglary charge. Fines and restitution were also ordered. Victim impact statements. Heartbreaking. Parents, friends spoke of lost voices, unfinished futures. One father told Kohberger directly that he had picked the wrong families, wrong community. Others asked, "Why him? Why this?" The house where the murders occurred was donated to the university and demolished in December 2023. For some, it was symbolic justice. For others, loss of a crime scene. Memorials, scholarships, gardens, healing spaces created in memory of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. The community still mourns. Public issues raised, mental health in academia, the role of warning signs in university programs, campus safety, transparency in investigations, press influence, plea deals versus open trials. Motive remains unestablished publicly. Kohberger offered no explanation during sentencing. Many are left wondering why. In the silence after the verdict, 4 empty rooms remain. The law has spoken, 4 life terms, no parole. But justice is more than punishment. It's truth, motives, closure. For Kaylee, Madison, Xana, Ethan, their lives ended too soon, their voices still echo. We may never know why. And that may be the deepest wound of all. If you watched this with a heavy heart, consider subscribing for more deeply reported true crime documentaries. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe motivates someone with the intellect to commit such horror? Do you think every academic institution should do more when warnings appear? Let us honor the memory of Madison, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan by refusing to let their lives become mere headlines. Encourage curiosity, demand accountability, remember who they were.